All right, we're here with Percy Pringle, and we're going to ask him just a couple of questions about how he got into the business, and maybe a little couple of inspirations. First question is, what made you decide to get into the pro wrestling business?
Well, being from the deep South, my parents my earliest memories of wrestling, I guess, when I was 4 or 5 years old. My parents used to take me to the local TV station where they used to tape. It was Channel 5. They called it Wrestling Live on Channel 5. And I have some vivid memories of going there when I was 4 or 5 years old, standing on the chairs and watching the wrestling. And I guess that's where it first got into my blood, and it's never got out. It's one of those things that, I guess it was just meant to be. It's kind of predestination. But I followed wrestling. I really got into it really heavy when I got into high school. And when I got my driver's license and I was able to get around on my own, drive to the matches on my own. And if there was wrestling anywhere in our vicinity, in our area, I was there. And like I said, it was back in the territory days, of course. We're talking, I was a freshman in high school in 1968. So we're talking late 60s, early 70s. I graduated in 72. And it was Gulf Coast Wrestling. It was run by the Fields family, and it was a whole group of family. To put things in perspective, they are a part of the Fuller family, the Welch family, and the Fields family. It's all one clan. But it was just there. I think I sat front row ringside for 7 years, and I probably missed a handful of nights in 7 years. And it was just a love at first sight type of deal. And to make a long story short, similar to Jim Cornette, we're a lot alike in a lot of different ways. But I really got into the business the same way Jim Cornette did. I started taking pictures at ringside, and because I always had a camera, and the promoters saw me, and the guys that done the publicity saw me, and they asked to see some of my pictures. They saw them, and they wanted to use them, so that was my foot in the door. So I started out being a photographer at ringside, and got to know some of the boys because I was always hanging around there all the time. And me and my buddies would go to the matches and then go home and do what we saw at the matches. Backyard wrestling. And but basically that's what it was. And we built our own ring, and eventually, it was just like, and it was really hard to get into the business now, just like it is now, except for different reasons. Back then it was so hard because of the kayfabe situation. It was almost an impossibility to get your foot in the door then because of kayfabe, unless you had a sponsor, somebody that helped open the door for you. So we had a couple of wrestlers that took interest in this, and they would come over and work out with us, and this, that, and the other, and that's how I got in. The rest is pretty much history.
That's good. That's good.
I hope you can edit this shit.
Yeah, we don't want to.
Oh, you don't want it, so we're continue to take. You gonna put this on there?
Yeah, we want it to be very lighthearted. Nothing, nothing.
Well, this is very lighthearted.
That's what
I guess y'all heard her knocking at my door, huh?
Yeah.
That was the whore order. She's here now. Sit down, baby. I'll be with you in a minute.
No problem.
Oh, it's a male whore too. Now my secret's out. Percy's fucking gay. And I'm gonna make sure my wife gets a copy of this too. But anyway, and eventually I had my first match, and it was just back in those days, independent. What we call independents today. Back in those days, it was called outlaw territories. If you worked for a group that was running against, an established group, and all of them were pretty much sanctioned by the NWA down south then. So I worked for these outlaw territories, and that's the only place you could work. But long story short, after a couple of years, I worked wherever I could, and I even would drive from Mobile up to Memphis to do Memphis TV. I think Jerry Jarrett paid me $10 or $15 to drive, 8 hours to Memphis to do a job on TV. But I was a wrestler, so it was worth every penny. And moving up real fast, I had a call one day, and they asked me if they had an opening over in Mississippi and they needed somebody. Somebody was sick or something. They said, Percy, you want to write? Hell, they didn't come to Percy because I wasn't Percy yet. I'm jumping ahead. you want to come over and work in Mississippi that night? I said, oh yeah, I jumped at the chance. Went over there that night and worked against Dr. X. It was a Jim Osborne. He was gained fame back in the AWA days with Dick Beyer, when Dick Beyer was the destroyer, and Dr. X was a Dr. X and a Dr. Double X. Anyway, so I'd done that, and the booker was Frankie King, the great Mephisto, and a lot of old timers will remember him. Long-time fans remember the great Mephisto. He was the booker, and he asked me to come down to Biloxi, Mississippi, the next night, and which I did. And I worked again, and when I came back to the dressing room, he pulled me to the side. He goes, "Have you ever thought about being a manager?" And no, I didn't, because everybody wants to be a wrestler. I think that's why we don't have any managers around today, because everybody wants to be wrestlers, and there's no managers. It's one of the reasons, I think. But anyway, he says, "Well," he says, "let's give it a try." He said, "You go out to the ring." There were two Samoan guys, two Samoan brothers, and they were going as the Mongolians. So he says, "You go to the ring with the Mongolians tonight, and we'll see how you work as a manager, and we're going to call you Percy Pringle." And this was, I remember this date very vividly. It was on April the 11th, 1977, I believe. It could have been 78, but 77. I do remember the date, though, because my real birthday is April the 10th. So Percy Pringle was born on April the 11th. So I went out, and it was just a natural thing. It was just, and I've been a manager ever since, and it's been a great ride. I've been very blessed.
How do you feel about the change from Percy to Paul Bearer? How do you that's such different ends of the spectrum?
Absolutely. So I was Percy from from 78 until the Paul Bearer character was born. I signed my first contract with WWF on December 22nd, 1990. And started on the road with The Undertaker in January of 91. So I went from 78 to 1990 as Percy Pringle, and that was a drastic change. And at first I hated it because it was just so different. I had Bobby Heenan was my idol. That was so much fun for me today. I would probably sit there next to Bobby all afternoon and not get paid for it because I'm so lucky that Bobby was one of my heroes that became one of my friends, and I don't get to see Bobby very often. It's been about 2 years since I've seen you, and I had such a good time today sitting next to Bobby and bringing back some old memories and stuff, and it was just great. In fact, we took a picture together. I got a Polaroid over here with me and Bobby, and that I'll take home and hang in my office. But back to that, I had blonde hair all those years and wore the Bobby Heenan outfits. I copied Percy Pringle after Bobby Heenan. And then when I got my WWF contract, they said, "We want you to be Paul Bearer, and we want you to make your hair black and your mustache black, and you can wear black suits and all that." So it was a drastic change, and I hated it at first, but it didn't take long. I don't know if I think maybe after my first paycheck, things started falling in place. I really started liking Paul Bearer after that first paycheck. But in all seriousness, though, The Undertaker and I, we hit it off immediately. And there's a history there, too. I was Mark Calloway's first manager in his first professional match ever at the Sportatorium in Dallas. I spent 6 years in Dallas, and that's where he broke in there. And he wrestled Bruiser Brody that night. And if you talk to him today, he'll tell you today that the only reason they sent me to the ring with him that night was to show him the way back. Because Bruiser Brody beat his ass all over that Sportatorium. And he went to the ring that night, had a mask on. It was one of my old masks that I gave him. He didn't even have a mask. He called himself Texas Red. And I was Undertaker's first manager in his first match in the business. So it was so ironic that who would ever know that years down the road that we would be hooked up as that I would be blessed to be a part of in my opinion, the greatest gimmick in the modern day era of our business. But it's been a great run, and I was either working with the Undertaker or against the Undertaker for, gosh, my WWF contract just expired a couple months ago, and so I've been getting paid by the WWF for the past 14 years. So there's not a lot of guys can say that, especially managers. As much as I love Bobby Heenan, I don't think Bobby Heenan's been paid by Vince McMahon for 14 straight years. So I've been really blessed, and I love the business, and the business has been very good to me. But then again, I like to say that I've been good for the business. At least I hope I have. I'm still here.
Do you think it's like there's not really managers out there like you guys anymore? That's a detriment to the
They're not there. It's just
dying breed?
Yeah, well, I hope not. I don't know. You can ask 5 different people the same question, 5 different old school guys like me, and you'll probably get 5 different answers. But most of us are going to say it's probably because of the TNA. And I'm not talking about total nonstop action either. I'm talking about the tits and ass. That's the focus and has been for the last several years. Well, hell, everybody wants to look at a pretty set of tits, and then at my tits, I got real tits too, but it's that's just the way it is. I would like to see the manager thing come around again, but the young talent today, when they're watching the product, they don't have any old school managers to watch. So how can they want to become something they can't see? That's what I figured. And there's not many of us around. And what we have left, of course, me and Bobby today, and Jim Cornette, and Paul Heyman. Lou Albano, he's not doing well at all. His health is bad. But as far Valiant today, I saw today, and there's not many of us old school managers around anymore.
Speaking of health, we're gonna wrap this up for you. How's your health doing? We know you had a little bit of a weight issue, and then you feeling good now, or
I'm a totally new man. I've lost 240 pounds after my gastric bypass surgery, and I feel fantastic. I just a picture's worth 1,000 words. If you get a chance to go to my website, percypringle.com, I got a lot of old pictures on there, and you can read the stories and in more detail than what I've had a chance to talk about here. But I feel really good. I got a granddaughter that's a year old now, and I can get on the floor and play with her and get back up, and that's great. And I can see parts of my body I haven't seen in a long time too, and that's good too. I forgot he was there. Not that I use him for anything, except for my heart just walked in. So if you wrap this thing up, we can turn out the lights. Oh yes!
And Percy, I don't know if people realize that you were down and you're in the area where that was hit by that latest hurricane. Just want to know how your family's doing and friends and stuff. Everybody doing okay down there?
It's been a rough summer for us hurricane-wise. I've boarded up my home 4 times this summer. And I was born and raised on the Gulf of Mexico, and I can't recall ever having to board my house up 4 times in one hurricane season. And it's not over yet. We've still got 2 more months to go. The good Lord willing, hopefully everything's okay. But as far as my family, I'm ashamed to talk about the damage that we received. We received damage, but it was just minor compared to other people. There's people 15 miles away from me that's lost everything that they own, including their homes. And then all along the Gulf Coast, Biloxi, Mississippi, New Orleans, it's just you've seen the images on television, but it just doesn't do it justice. To sit in your house and hear the wind outside 125 miles an hour. And you always hear all the time people describe it as hearing a freight train. And that's what it sounds like. We sit there and there's no power. And you hear trees snapping and power transformers popping. And you don't know if you're... it's like being the Wizard of Oz, they're Dorothy in a tornado. You don't know if your roof's going to come off or what. But we were very, very blessed. And it's really sad that a lot of people have been devastated by that, and hopefully they'll be able to kick out of it, really quick. And I just appreciate you guys inviting me up here. I really had a good time, and we got to see a lot of people I haven't seen in a long time, and meet a lot of new friends. And we hope to come back, and you know how to find me if you ever want old Percy around again.